Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of IK NHL Daily Talk. And it is just I, Kyle, today, as unfortunately Jakob cannot join us because he's been dealing with some stuff. So, you know, give Jakob your prayers and, leave some love for him down in the comment section because I'm sure he would appreciate that. But yeah, no. I mean, obviously, I'll be doing this episode all alone here, so we'll get a. I guess we'll get on with it because I mean, there's not much else I can do, but yeah, I'm going to condense a lot of the news over the last few days. And then I'll briefly go over scores from the prior days. And then obviously I'll, do a couple things like preview the games that happened today. Because I'm recording this episode, as you guys can see, at 12:24 a.m. So obviously it is beyond midnight. But on that note, let's get into this episode. And for our first point, which I don't think I have it pulled up. No, and I have to figure out exactly where it was. Okay, this is where we begin. So, Senators signed defenseman Gabriel Eliasson to a 3-year entry-level deal, and Eliasson, who's 19, has 2 goals, 8 points through 61 games with the Barrie Colts in the OHL this season. And obviously, he was drafted 39th overall by the Ottawa Senators in the 2024 NHL entry draft. So, yeah, they signed one of their rookies, and I mean, it's good, to get guys who are coming up, and he seems like he's a very defensive minded defenseman based off of those statistics. But I'll briefly say my opinions on this one. Obviously, I want to get this episode done quickly so that I can get this out to you and then go to sleep. But yeah, good signing by the Sens, and they signed one of the rookies, and more so, it's just stating obviously what happened. But moving on, of course, the Utah Mammoth have signed goaltender Michael Herbel to a 3-year entry-level contract. In Herbel, who's 21, went 19-9-1 with a 937 save percentage with UMass in the NCAA this season, and he was drafted 38th overall by the actual Arizona Coyotes. So this was not the Utah Mammoth at this point. He was drafted by the Arizona organization, but now that they're in Utah, obviously all of Arizona's players got transferred to the Utah organization, and they are playing for the Mammoth. And yeah, good for Herbal. And I mean, obviously he had an amazing season with UMass in the NCAA this season, but yeah, I'm intrigued to see what he can do with Utah and or the Tucson Roadrunners, which yes, that was also the Arizona Coyotes affiliate team, but it is now Utah's. But moving on, we have the Jets who signed forward Lucas Wallen to a 1-year entry-level deal, and Wallen, who is 24 years old, had 21 goals, 39 points through 36 games played, with the University of St. Thomas in the NCAA this season. And I'm not sure where the University of St. Thomas is, but that's a very interesting university. And yeah, he had himself a very good season, and he's a little bit on the, like, I guess, higher side in the way of age for your NCAA prospects that you see signed. But yes, he was an undrafted free agent, and I mean, best of luck to him. But I mean, most 24-year-olds coming out of the NCAA don't make it. But I guess we'll see. Maybe he can defy the odds, and maybe the Jets have a gem here. The Detroit Red Wings extend defenseman Jacob Bernard Docker to a 2-year deal worth $1.6 million AAV. And Bernard Docker, who's 25 years old, has 0 goals and 4 points through 55 games played with Detroit this season. And obviously, you are not signing this guy for, the goals or the points. You guys are signing him because of his defensive capabilities. And obviously, he's a third pair defender, hence the cap hit, but he's still got some potential, and I do think this kid has, the tools to put it together at the NHL level. And I have liked Bernard Docker's game, but I mean, this season, obviously, he's been okay for Detroit, but I think recently he's been in and out of the lineup. And yeah, I guess we'll see what happens, down the line and to the end of the season and obviously beyond this year. But low cap hit, obviously it's a low risk signing for the Red Wings as well. And if he doesn't work out, you send him down to the minors, and most of his cap is buried anyway. So yeah, not terrible, not great. That is Jacob Bernard Docker for you. But no, obviously James Hagens, made his debut as a Providence Bruin, and that is just a picture of him in the Providence Bruins jersey. And yeah, I mean, I go more into it, but obviously he's an excellent rookie, and we spoke about him, when obviously he signed his AHL deal, and I'm expecting big things from him, but obviously we're still waiting for his NHL debut. But I guess another news point that we have is apparently or rookie goaltender Jakub Dobesh has reportedly requested a break from talking to the media. So I guess, I mean, technically it's like, I guess it's fine for players to do that. Like, he's obviously a rookie, and in Canadian markets especially, it's very stressful, and there's a lot going on, and I really don't blame him for, you know, wanting a break from the media, especially in somewhere where the media can be harsh like Montreal, and they've been saying this season that the Habs goaltending has not been up to par, and maybe it hasn't on some nights, but I honestly think they've blown it out of proportion, and yeah, I mean, I don't know, I guess we'll see what happens, but I don't know if he's been interviewed since then, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty brutal. I don't necessarily think that reporters should be poking at these guys. And yeah, if you're playing bad, if you want to break from the reporters, or even if you're playing well, but just need that mental clarity and whatnot, I don't see an issue with this. And the fact that this is even news is pretty crazy. And these guys should have some privacy in their lives and, shouldn't be questioned every day. But obviously, the league needs a way to have, I guess, what's his face? I don't even know what the right word is for it, but I don't know. I don't know the right word, but I'm too tired to think about it. And honestly, I just want to get this episode done and over with. But the first Eastern Conference playoff team, well, I guess quite the opposite. This is the first Eastern Conference team to miss the playoffs altogether, and it is the New York Rangers after their loss to the Leafs the other day, where they lost 4-3 despite outshooting their opponents 43-18. And I did make a YouTube short about it. If I remember, I will put it down below. And oh my goodness, Minnie, are you all right? That's just my cat knocking stuff off of my desk, but I guess I'll pick it up after. But yeah, I mean, unfortunate for the Rangers, but ultimately, this is very good for their future. And yeah, I mean, they desperately need draft picks, and I don't know what to say, but I guess we'll move on. And we have a few more signings, and then obviously we'll, move past and get on to scores, which I will describe how I'm going to do that after. But we'll talk about, some Predators GM candidates. And apparently, Peter Chiarelli has left the Blues organization to pursue other opportunities. And apparently, he will be involved in the Nashville Predators interview process for a new general manager. And Chiarelli has spent the last 7 seasons in St. Louis's front office as a senior advisor, and then obviously he was the vice president of hockey operations for the last 5 years. And he does have NHL experience as a general manager, as he was the general manager for the Bruins from 2006 to 2015, and then he was with the Oilers from 2015 to 2019, which his Oilers tenure was not great, and that is pretty much why he hasn't been a general manager since. But ultimately, we'll see if he can get the position, and I wish Peter Chiarelli the best of luck. And yeah, he made some bad moves, but I have no ill will against the gentleman himself. He seems like I mean, I guess he seems like a fine guy. I don't know what else to say. I don't know the guy. I don't know what he is like in person, and I don't know. He could be completely different than what he appears from on the outside, but I don't know. He seems pretty hard nosed, and ultimately we'll see. But obviously, we have another signing, and the Blackhawks have signed forward Yuri Feckman. Okay, and they signed him to a 3-year entry-level deal worth 996.7K AAV, which that is a oddly specific number, which, I mean, I don't know why you don't just round up to a million. That's kind of diabolical, but I guess I don't know, decided to sign him to that odd number, and oh dear, I'm yawning, and here we go. But Feckman, who had 20 or who's 20 years old, had 3 goals and 20 points, so same amount of points as his age, through 52 games with the SCL Tigers in the National League this season, and that is a lower scoring league, so Those are not terrible numbers, but obviously not, star-studded numbers. But he was drafted 93rd overall by Chicago in the 2023 NHL entry draft. And yeah, they're just signing one of their rookies. And ultimately, he seems like a decent player. Can he lay a hit? Yes. Okay, you're in. Send me this post. 3 goals in 52 games? Oh, I didn't even pick up on that, but I guess he is more of a playmaker than anything. So I don't know if he's going to join Chicago. I think he'll probably join their AHL affiliate for the remainder of the season, but I am not in charge there. So yeah, we'll see what they decide to do. But great for the guy, and yeah, you're going to be making some money regardless for the next few years, anyways. But the Toronto Maple Leafs have signed defenseman Hayes Hundley to a 3-year entry-level deal. And Hundley, who's 21 years old, had 6 goals, 12 points through 38 games played with the University of St. Thomas in the NCAAs this season. So that is the second guy from that university that we've seen in this episode. And yeah, I'm not sure who these guys are, and I don't know. Excuse me, I don't know the university at all, to be honest, but they obviously are Division 1. I do know that much, but yeah, he's also an undrafted free agent, and this guy seems like he could be pretty solid. But and obviously, based off of the point totals, I presume that he is more of a shutdown guy rather than an offensive defender or even a two-way. But if he can shut it down for the Leafs down the line, then that's all that matters. And ultimately, you take swings at as many guys as you physically can. But we have one signing for my team, which this is the first signing that we've seen, which I am pretty intrigued to see, which obviously the Edmonton Oilers have signed forward Thomas Cebulka to a 2-year entry-level deal. And Cebulka, who's 21, had 7 goals and 22 points through 47 games played with HC Motorcycle Budejovic. Holy cow. In the ELH. So I think that's Czechia this season, and he is an undrafted free agent. And fun fact, Cebulka means an onion. So yeah, I guess the Oilers have Thomas Onion. So I don't know the player. I'm going to look into him more, and obviously, if he starts playing for Edmonton or whatever, I'm sure we will speak about him more. But at this point, he's a player that is definitely an under the radar guy for me. And I don't know the guy, but I'm sure he will join Bakersfield down the stretch here. And yeah, no, we'll see what happens. Sir, a second David Tomashek has hit the Oilers, which I don't think he's going to be a David Tomashek. I mean, he's a very different player and obviously a younger guy, but maybe he'll end up turning out the same. We will see. But yeah, no. In Stan we trust, and I guess someone says that he is actually a defenseman, so he might be a defender. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. World Junior Championship legend. This guy gave me 7 assists in 20 games in NHL 23. Oh, well. All right then. I don't know what to say to that. That's a really funny obscure fact about your game, but hey, if he produced, I'm not gonna worry about it. But the Montreal Canadiens have made the final signing up to this point, and they signed defenseman Owen Protz to a 3-year entry-level deal. And Protz, who's 20, has 5 goals, 23 points through 64 games played with the Brantford Bulldogs in the OHL this season. And he was drafted 102nd overall by the Montreal Canadiens in the 2024 NHL entry draft. And that's not Pickford. I don't know who. I think they're talking about Owen Pickford. I don't know who they're talking about, but so this meaning will play for the Brentford for their playoffs. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure, but I assume so based off of that. But he was drafted 102nd overall by the Montreal Canadiens in the 2024 NHL entry draft, and yeah, he had a pretty good season. And obviously, he's a defender, so more of a shutdown guy, but he will definitely fill a role. And yeah, good for him and good for his team. But wow, I thought I was going to be quicker with this news, to be honest, but I've actually been going on and on. So we'll definitely be making these scores very quick. But moving on, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I guess Toronto Maple Leaf star in William Nylander on what has gone wrong for Toronto this season. And I have my thoughts about maybe some stuff he says, but that's something I'm going to keep to myself. And yeah, that's pretty rough. I mean, he sounds like he's fed up with the team, and obviously Mitch Marner left in the offseason. Matthews is injured for the remainder of the year, and I mean, Nylander has not had nearly the great season that he had in years past, and I'd be frustrated too if I were him, and I will not be surprised if he requests a trade this offseason, but no, I mean, the Leafs season this year has been a complete mess. Like, after adding Matthias Maccelli, people thought that they could contend and potentially still do some damage in that Eastern Conference, but they've dropped to near the bottom of the East, and this team is absolutely abysmal at the moment. But no, William Nylander, I feel sorry for you, but ultimately I don't necessarily like you talking bad about your team just because of what's going on. And obviously, if this team is going to have a solution, you have to be a part of that because you are one of the best members of this hockey team, hence why you're being paid that 11.6 million or something like that you're making. So go show it on the ice rather than, you know, I guess talking smack in the media and whatnot about your team. But yeah, I don't know. William Nylander he's quite the guy. I've seen clips where I really like him and then clips where I really dislike him, but certainly a guy though that like for Sweden, especially on the international stage, obviously he's one of their best players and for good reason. I mean, he is amazing and this guy is legit, but yeah. Nah, I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs are. I don't think they're mathematically eliminated, but they may as well be eliminated, hence the GIF there. And yeah, no, I believe this will be a part of the title of the video because obviously, yeah, Toronto's season has been abysmal, and yeah, I don't know what else to say, but yeah, Nylander, you got to be a part of the solution, buddy, because there's no guarantee you do get moved, even if you request a trade. But that's enough for news. And obviously, we will move on to the schedule, which. Yes. And here we are. So, the last day of recaps that I actually did was Monday, March 24th. And then obviously, I went over the schedule here and I said that these games were going to happen the next day. And I will not be saying all the scores for this day because we have a few days worth of games here. So, I will just quickly skim through here, but I'll just say the scores real quick. So Toronto, Boston, Toronto won 4-2. Montreal hosted Carolina and won 5-2. Ottawa visited Detroit and won 3-2. Florida hosted Seattle and won 5-4 in a shootout. The Chicago Blackhawks beat the Islanders 4-3 in their visit. The Blue Jackets visiting the Flyers won 3-2. The Colorado Avalanche won 6-2 over the Penguins in Pittsburgh to get revenge after their 7-2 loss last time. The Wild lose to the Lightning while visiting 6-3. The Blues shut out the Capitals 3-0 on home ice. The Nashville Predators beat the San Jose Sharks 6-3 on their own home ice. And then the New Jersey Devils beat the Dallas Stars visiting them 6-4. The Winnipeg Jets beat the Golden Knights hosting them 4-1. And then of course the Calgary Flames beat the LA Kings 3-2 in a shootout of their own. The Oilers beat Utah 5-2 with Tristan Jarry in the net, and McDavid was great in that game. And then, of course, Anaheim visiting the Vancouver Canucks, who are bottom of the league, beat them 5-3. So there you have it, folks. That was the scores from March 24th, so that was Tuesday. Now we'll go over Wednesday's schedule real quick, and then I'll do a slightly deeper recap for, obviously, Thursday's games, which that was yesterday, well, 2 days ago technically, but based off of what day this schedule was video was supposed to be posted on. But the Boston Bruins visited the Buffalo Sabres and they beat them 4-3 in overtime, and then the Rangers beat the Toronto Maple Leafs beat the New York Rangers 4-3 to mathematically eliminate them from the playoffs. And there you have it, folks. That's your scores for Wednesday, March 25th. And then moving on to, obviously, yesterday's games, which I'm going to call it yesterday. But yes, I don't look at the date in the bottom right. Ignore that. Just pretend you're listening to yesterday, or quote-unquote yesterday. But the Columbus Blue Jackets, who visited the Montreal Canadiens, would obviously lose to Montreal, and Montreal would win 2-1 over the Blue Jackets. And Your winning goaltender and game-winning goal would come from, obviously, Jakub Dobeš is your winning goaltender, and Zach Bolduc is your winning goal scorer. And then for the Pittsburgh Penguins visiting the Ottawa Senators, the Penguins would win 4-3 in a shootout, and a winning goaltender in this one would be Stuart Skinner. And I would sometimes recap the shootout, but obviously I am wanting to get this done pretty quick. And I don't know, I'll choose a random game along the way that I'll fully go in and I'll recap. But the Seattle Kraken would visit the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they would actually get the better of the Lightning 4-3 in overtime. And Brandon Montour would score the overtime winner to keep Seattle's playoff hopes alive, and Philip Grubauer would get the win in the Seattle net. Moving on, obviously, the Florida Panthers lose to the Minnesota Wild 3-2, despite outshooting the Wild like 50 to, or was it the other way around? Hang on. One team had 50 shots, and excuse me, I can't remember if it was Florida or if it was Minnesota. It was Minnesota. Never mind. They definitely deserved to win this game, but yeah, Jesper Wallstedt would be the winning goaltender, and Joel Eriksson Ek would get the game-winning goal. And for the Wild, Jeff Petrie got his first point since obviously getting traded from Florida to Minnesota with his new team. So good for him, and he was part of the reason why they won this game. But moving on, we see the Dallas Stars visit the New York Islanders, and the Islanders, who are hosting the Stars, would actually win this one 2-1, and Ilya Sorokin would have himself an excellent night and would get himself the win, and himself and his team the win. And Callum Ritchie would score the second for the Islanders, which would stand as the game winner. And you know what? I'll jump into this one. We'll fully recap this game. So we have the Chicago Blackhawks who visited the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Flyers would take this one 5-1 as they would outshoot the Blackhawks 42-26. And the Flyers get early goal to power win against Blackhawks. Bump Couturier score in first 3 minutes for Philadelphia, which is points in 7 of past 8 games, and Bedard nets his 30th of the season for Chicago. We'll go over your goal scorers in this one. So Alex Bump would record his third goal of the season just 48 seconds into the game off of a snapshot, and Christian Dvorak would record the only assist on this goal. But just 2 minutes later, or not even, I guess, Sean Couturier would record his 9th of the year on his own snapshot, and Luke Glendening would have his 7th assist of the season, who, by the way, he has been excellent since arriving in Philadelphia. And actually, this goal would stand as your game winner. So 2 minutes and 33 seconds of the game, the Flyers had already won. Well, in hindsight, but obviously, you play the games for a reason, and that's why they matter. But Denver Barkey, 5 minutes and 14 seconds into the second period, would score his 4th of the year to put the Flyers up 3-0. And that one would be assisted by Trevor Zegras and Owen Tippett. But obviously, like the caption said, the Blackhawks didn't fully go away, as Connor Bedard would get his 30th of the season, and that would come just past the halfway point to make it 3-1 in favor of the Flyers. And Antoine Frondel would get his second assist of his NHL career, and then Louis Crevier would get the other assist. And I do know he left this game early after getting cut by a skate, so hopefully he's okay. And I honestly don't know his update or his situation. And obviously, if Jakub and I hear that it's something serious enough, we will speak about it. But otherwise, we'll keep it under the radar and we'll just leave it at that. But moving on, which this goal would come a minute and a half after the Bedard goal. Noah Cates would score on the backhand to make it 4-1 for the Flyers, and that would be his 16th of the season, assisted by Matvei Michkov and Alex Bump. But then, of course, the final goal of the game would come still in the second period by Christian Dvorak, and that would be his 15th with 25 seconds left on the clock in the period. And that'd be a tip-in off of a Owen Tippett shot. Get it? Tip it and tip in. I'm going to shut up. And then Noah Cates would get the second assist on this one. And yeah, the Flyers get a very valuable 2 points in a game that, really does matter at this point of the season. And for your 3 stars tonight, Samuel Ersson would allow 1 goal and would have himself a .962 save percentage. And oh my gosh. Which, honestly, for his standards are very good. And yeah, I'm glad to see that he had himself a great performance. And moving on to your second star, which that would be Christian Dvorak, which deservingly so with his goal and an assist. And then Jamie Drysdale, who had no points, but obviously, was impactful in the game, is your third star. And we'll go to your goaltending performances real quick, which obviously you already heard the Flyers. So for Chicago, it was Spencer Knight, which he would allow 5 on 42 and had himself an 881. But despite not getting a lot of help, he honestly did hold his own, and I will not fault him on that. But yeah, the Flyers pretty much dominated in every fashion of the game, and that's what happens when a team dominates. And they also dominated the season series, as at the end of it, and when all was said and done, the Flyers would take the season series 2-0 over the Hawks, as they would win the first one 3-1 on December 23rd, and of course they would win this latest episode as of March 26th, and they would win 5-1 to win the season series 2-0. But there you have it, folks. That is the one game I will recap fully, because obviously I want to get this episode done and over with. But the San Jose Sharks would visit the St. Louis Blues, and the Blues would, not allow the Sharks to get the 2 points, as they would take it to overtime, and ultimately the Blues would win 2-1. And Joel Hofer, who had himself another excellent game and has been very good of late, would get the win for the Blues, and Dylan Holloway would score the overtime winner, which this season's been a little bit underwhelming for him, but obviously that was kind of a redeeming game for him. But moving on, excuse me, the New Jersey Devils would visit the Nashville Predators, and they would win 4-2, as we would see Jacob Markstrom get the win for the Devils, who have won 2 straight now, possibly more. I did not fact check, so I don't know. And Nico Hischier would record the game-winning goal, so that would be the third goal for the Devils. But yeah, good for them. And moving on, as in our next matchup, we have the Colorado Avalanche, who would visit the Winnipeg Jets, and the Avalanche would take this one 3-2, and we would see Mackenzie Blackwood, get the win as the goaltender, and Nathan MacKinnon would score the game winner for the Colorado Avalanche, which that is no surprise. And now we see the Washington Capitals visit the Utah Mammoth in a game where both teams exploded for a lot of goals, as the Caps would win this one 7-4, and Logan Thompson would get the win for the Capitals, and Rasmus Sandin would actually get the game-winning goal for the Capitals. And Ovechkin did have a hat-trick in this game, which marks the 21st franchise that he has scored a hat-trick against, which, I mean, that just sounds like video game numbers right there. And yeah, great for Ovi, and he's got an absurd amount of goals now. He's unreal. But now we see the Anaheim Ducks face off against the Calgary Flames, and the Ducks would actually take this one 3-2 in OT, as Ville Husso would get the win for the Anaheim Ducks, and Mikael Gramlin would score the overtime winner for the Ducks, which he has been very good of late. So congrats to him. And yeah, now we have the Oilers, who visited the Golden Knights, and the my Edmonton Oilers would get back-to-back wins now. Obviously, one over Utah, now against Vegas. And yeah, Bouchard scored a very nice overtime winner to seal the game for the Oilers. And Connor Ingram would be the winning goaltender, of course, in this one. But then, of course, our final game in this, I guess, for, yesterday, or I don't even know what to call it anymore, but the LA Kings would blank the Vancouver Canucks 4-0, and Darcy Kemper would record a shutout in this one, and Scott Laughton would get, the first goal of the game, and ultimately that would stand as the game winner. And yeah, good for the Kings, and they're just on the heels of the Nashville Predators. But obviously, we'll move on to, the 2 games that happened, I guess, technically yesterday now, if you look at the clock, but, that barely counts. But both of these games fell at the 5 o'clock time frame, as the first matchup, we would see the Detroit Red Wings visit the Buffalo Sabres, and that would come at 5 o'clock Mountain Time. And we would see John Gibson for the Detroit Red Wings, and then, of course, Alex Lyon, who has been amazing for the Buffalo Sabres, would suit up in this one. But then, moving down the list to the Blackhawks, who would visit the, New York Rangers, or Arvid Soderblom would get the start for the Chicago Blackhawks, and Dylan Garand, who is only making a second career start, would, get the nod for the Rangers. So you guys will see the scores for these 2 games tomorrow. But yeah, both these games are at 5 o'clock, and we see 3 original 6 teams, along with the part of the 67 expansion in the Buffalo Sabres. Actually, I think the Sabres came in 70 with the Canucks. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that one off the top of my head, but I believe it was 70 that they came in. I keep saying that we'll fact check a lot of these one day, but I'm sure it will come up again on the podcast. And if I had Jakob, one of us would look it up, and I don't have him today, so too bad. But yeah, that's all for the news and recap and whatnot. And obviously, go check out our Spotify as well. We have, our IKNHL Daily Talk Spotify podcast. So if you enjoyed the episodes on here, that would mean the world. And obviously, show us love on any platform, or every and any platform. And speaking of Spotify, obviously, you know, you have our Instagram too, which has got 40 followers now, which is honestly more than I thought we would ever reach. So thank you everyone for the support. And yeah, if you did make it to this point, obviously, if you come to the Instagram, we have our links to both our Spotify podcast and our YouTube channel. So, be sure to check those out and, click the links and go give those a support. And I mean, if you're watching this, obviously you're watching on YouTube and you already know our YouTube channel, but please do leave a like and subscribe, as that means the world to us. And we're getting there, but I mean, we still have a lot of work to put in, and it's only a matter of time. But yeah, no, here, I'll close these tabs and I'll move back to the NHL page. But yeah, I need to get this video uploaded and I want to get to sleep. So thank you all for watching. I, appreciate anyone who is actually here watching. And yeah, you guys have yourselves an excellent weekend coming up, and then an excellent week ahead, because yeah, it's going to be a long while, and we are approaching April. So that will be the third, I guess the fourth different month that Jakob and I are making episodes in, and we're nearing our 3 month special. So, for a quarter year, we're going to do something, and I don't know what we're going to do yet, but I will definitely make sure that on that day that we do the episode together, or if we can't do it that day for whatever reason, we will, do a makeup day the day prior or after or something. But yeah, I'm getting out of here. You guys get out of here. Peace out, y'all, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.